My name is Tom Zimmerman. I teach English at Washtenaw Community College in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And my colleague here is going to introduce herself. She is from the University of Michigan.
Yeah, my name is Wijdan Alsayegh. I am PhD in literature, Arabic literature and language. Okay,
great.
Today we are going to share with you our knowledge about what's going on about Arab women writers in Arab world.
Exactly so, exactly so.
Okay.
And let's find that remote control.
have
Oh, you
it,
have
I
it?
have
Okay,
it,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's go ahead and start. So we have a little bit of an overview coming up here. Here we are. We're going to start by talking about, the nature of Arab society and its effects on women. So some general sociological and political discussion. And then we'll take a geographical tour, right, literary tour of the area in regards to women writers in the region. So that will be how we proceed. Okay? So yeah.
We will start with the nature of Arab society. So to understand the nature of Arab society, we would like to highlight 4 aspects, 4 points: the political system, the religious system, and the religious system, the patriarchal social system, and the audience. It means Arab audience. We will start with the political system. Political system, either corrupted secular or military dictatorship. Second, the religious institution. The religious institution means who are responsible of issuing and generating fatwas. And as we know, the religious institution in Arab countries divided into 2 parts: Sunni institution and Shiite institution. So the Sunni institution divided into also 2 parts. So we have like Wahhabism and Salafism in Saudi Arabia. We have Al-Azhar Mosque is located in Cairo. And the Shiite establishments, which is located in Tehran, and I mean the religious seminary, Hawza, which is located in Tehran, and the leader for this establishment was Khomeini and his followers. This institution has another location, would be in Iraq, Najaf and Karbala. This is the Iraqi part of Shiite establishment. And we have patriarchal system. Patriarchal system or patriarchal society, it means how the patriarchal society legitimize the absolute power and role of male in the Arab community. How they apply what is the fanatical religious aspect regarding women in the Arab society. The position for macho male in the family would be the top. For example, father and his representative, son, uncle, husband, mahram, which is the male guardian. The final thing we would like to highlight to you today, the Arab audience. The Arab audience divided into two general types. First of all, the liberal, secular, educated audience. Second would be the dogmatic, fanatical audience, and also divided into 2 parts, Sunni and Shia. This is Shia and this is Sunni. Under the employment and under the poverty and under the ignorance, so both systems, political and religious system, are using the fanatical audience and the secular audience. So it's easy to find liberal writer against another liberal writer. Okay, so we will start with, okay?
Yes, absolutely. We'll start our tour around the Middle East and women writers. So we'll start with Egypt, and a lot going on in Egypt, and of course a big name. Yes.
Yeah, and my colleague Tom is going to read some excerpts from 1 or 2 from
Nawal al-Saadawi.
Nawal al-Saadawi.
Yes.
So there are many bold women writers in Egypt. who stood against or are standing against religious system, political system, patriarchal system, boldly. For example, we have Nawal al-Sa'dawi. Nawal al-Sa'dawi, she's novelist, social activist. Okay, how could I get rid of this pointer? Okay, no problem. So Nawal al-Sa'dawi, she stood against religious system when she stood against the female circumcision, and she stood also against the male circumcision, and also she stood against the dictatorship. So she was jailed, she was in a prison, she was exiled for a long term. She returned back to Cairo to participate Arab Spring in Cairo. And then she returned back to Tahrir Square to stood against Morsi and Muslim Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And there is fatwa issued against Nawal al-Sa'dawi. Fatwa, it means she is insulting the divine spirit. She is a blasphemist, and that's why her books were banned from the market, prevented to write in any Egyptian media, and she described all the time she is infidel, she is atheist, and she is blacklisted. But recently, maybe she released, but she returned back under the new government. Okay, so we have another bold writer, Mira. Oh, so I think I would like to invite my colleague Tom to read excerpt from
just
Nawal
a few things.
al-Sa'dawi.
Absolutely, yeah. This from her first autobiography, A Daughter of ISIS, and you get an idea of some of her political concerns very early on. From that book, she says her grandmother told her, "A boy is worth 15 girls at least. Girls are a blight." So you get an idea of the kind of cultural milieu we're in here, right? She also writes a lot, as Wijdan mentioned, about female circumcision or FGM, right? Female genital mutilation. And she herself was a victim of that, and she writes about it in that same book. "When I was 6, the daya, that is midwife, came along holding a razor, pulled out my clitoris from between my thighs and cut it off. She said it was the will of God and she had done his will. I lay in a pool of blood. After a few days, the bleeding stopped, but the pain was there like an abscess deep in my flesh. I did not know what other parts in my body there were that might need to be cut off in the same way." So you get an idea of the intensity of her writing. But she's also pretty funny too, and I know we'll talk about this later, regarding divorce. Some of these, very militant women writers who are trying to overturn the establishment. She's been married 3 times, and she says famously, "My 3 husbands were afraid of me. I am a very powerful woman." Divorced all 3 of them.
Thank you, Tom. So we have another bold writer, Mira al-Tahawi. She is novelist and university professor. She wrote against the patriarchal system and against the ceremony of distribution, the female body among male tribes, or so-called arranged marriage or the marriage of cousins. She said in her writings, it means the male tribe tried to collective a blessing for a daily rape of women. And she was also, the very interesting thing, she was also member, or former member in a brotherhood organization. And she revolted against them, and she declared that. She said they have like very backwardness against women, and she announced that in Egyptian media and in Arab media. The other writer, Afaf Alsayegh, she is a short story writer and activist, and she is a member in Kifaya organization. And this Kifaya organization, it means to distribute the revolution against Hosni Mubarak when he was in his power. And also she stood against, boldly, she is a star of Egyptian media. She stood against the patriarchal system and the guardianship of this patriarchal system. It means how they come to own women's body. And the other, maybe the last Egyptian writer, Fatma Naoud, she's a poet and translator. She stood against the religious system, patriarchal system in her poetry, and also she stood against the brutal ceremony in Islamic value. It means openly in Egyptian media and in her writings. It means poetry. And we have now the other, okay, go ahead.
Sudan is our next, as we take the tour around the Middle Eastern countries, we will stop in Sudan, and there's a lot going on there, and particularly Washtenaw, we'll talk
so
about.
it is part of our project too. So, so we are going to, so there are many bold writers in Sudan, but we would like to stop in Washtenaw Khadr Makki. So she is novelist, parliament lady, and also short story writer. She stood against the religious system, the political system, and patriarchal system. Actually, she raised in her short stories and novels a very sensitive issue in Arab society. She raised the racism against a black Arab, which is the first time a black novelist mentioned this issue. And maybe Professor Tom, he is going to read one.
Yes, right.
Okay, do you have some?
I do indeed, yeah.
Okay.
This is from her novel Ankle Bracelet of Thorns, which has a black male and a black female as the protagonists, and their difficulties living not only under a patriarchal culture, a religiously dogmatic culture, a politically oppressive culture, but also a culture wherein, and because of the color of their skin, they also have this additional barrier, this additional opposition in their lives. So both characters in the novel struggle with this mightily, I think, in their own way. It's kind of a parallel story, a little bit hopeless, but also a lot about the human spirit here too. So in this excerpt from Ankle Bracelet of Thorns, the heroine Nasra is talking about the traditional Arab beauty and how she doesn't seem to fit that traditional model. And here it is. She absolutely does not resemble women of the Arabian Peninsula in shape or soul. So why does she carry the burden of imitating Arab women and put on her body pounds of fat and tons of golden jewelry? She walked slowly under her heavy weight, and she slept until noon, and she surrendered to an example of a beautiful Arab woman who tries to satisfy her husband with her body. As Aisha, daughter of Talal, and Walida, daughter of al-Mustafki, wasn't an Arab Muslim, wasn't saying, I make my lover caress my cheek, I gave my kiss to anyone who desired it. So a lot of tension, here about this model of Arab beauty and the fact, as a black woman, she does not exactly fit that.
So
how do I fit in this society that already has all this oppression, and I have additional layer?
So it means isolation.
Absolutely.
And the next, thank you so much, Tom. So the next writer, Arab writer or Sudani writer, Rawda Al-Haj. So Rawda Al-Haj, she's a poet. She used a former way in her poetry. She tried to return back to the history, to use history as a literary mask to criticize the corruption governments. And Rawda Al-Haj, she's a TV producer, and also she won the prize from TV program Poet of Million. So it is Sha'ar al-Milyon. So this is like very famous program in Arab countries, like American Idol, exactly. The same style, but for poetry. And also Rawda Al-Haj, she is the first female poet to be awarded the clock at Souk Aqab Festival in Taif, Saudi Arabia. And this is the first time. So this is the clock for the male poet. So she got this clock. And who's addressed her? The Prince of Mecca, Khalid Al-Faisal. He's a poet too. And this is the first what could I say, event happen in our culture. Okay, so we are going to go to
North Africa, as we continue the tour.
North Africa. So North Africa, there are also many many Arab writers, but they we would like to start with Algeria. So Algeria, the top of also there are many Arab writers in Algeria. But we would like to start with the top of these writers, Ahlam Misd Ghanmi. So Ahlam Mistghanmi, she is very bold writer, and she's published 2 novels. So this is one of them. This is Dhakirat al-Jasad, and it means the memory of body. And then Fawda al-Hawas, it means the chaos of sense. And these 2 novels looks like part 1, part 2. She tried to document the Algerian Civil War. And she also tried to say how much the religious group damaged or destroyed the Algerian people. And she was so bold in her criticism. So that's why Arab media accused her and accused her daring. And they said, because she discussed in this novel the Iraqi government, Saddam Hussein, in this novel. So they said, oh, she is not the real writer for these novels. And the real writer for her novels would be Iraqi poet. And his name, Saadi Yusuf. And this guy, he kept silent. He was so happy because it's very popular. Okay. But she's continuous, she's poet, and she still exists in the literary scene. We're going to go to Morocco. There are many Arab writers in Morocco, but they are like focusing in 2 things, either in woman body, concern, her feeling, her world, and such as Fatiha Murshid, novelist, and in her novels, or glorify the Islamic values, such as Dr. Saad al-Nasr. And the same thing you can say about Tunis and about Libya too. It means either or, avoiding discussion the political system. We have now Arab Gulf countries, okay? So Arab Gulf countries, we have Layla al-Uthman, I think. Yeah, Layla al-Uthman. Yeah, we have Layla al-Uthman, just Layla al-Uthman. So Arab Gulf countries, they have a very active women writers. And these women writers, you can divide them into 2 types. Either they are writing about woman body, a female world, diary details, avoiding discussion the political system, religious system, or they use symbol to discuss the patriarchal system. For example, in Bahrain, we have Fathiya Ajlan. She is a dialect poet. She is so popular. We have Dr. Nabila Zbari. She is a poet. We named it Qasidat al-Nathar, prose poem. And we have, they are focusing on just women world. I love you, why you left me, but in a great style. They are really talented. And we have also Fawziya Rashid. She's a novelist, and she used the symbol to challenge the patriarchal system. She wrote about Shahrazad, about many characters in her really great novels. The same thing with Qatar. So there is like a group of talented women, such as Dr. Zakiya Malallah. She used her talent to glorify the Islamic value or Sufism in her collection poems. And we have also another talented lady. Her name is Dr. Huda al-Naimi, and she wrote about women feeling, passion, dreams. And we have also Hassa al-Awadi, and all of them educated, PhD holders. And Hassa al-Awadi, she focused on children literature. So she is really a great writer in short story for children. And this is part of her publications. And in the other hand, so this group of women are so active in literary and cultural events. And they are active in many literary prizes committees. For example, In Imarat, الشيخة جواهر القاسمي, the First Lady. She is a sponsor of women creativity by presenting a word of creativity of women in writing. So in poetry, there is a prize, short story, novel, criticism. Actually, I got one. So this is one of her prize, which is so helpful to give you like something for your writing, to
It
feel like,
legitimizes,
yeah, it means to feel like
Yeah.
someone so grateful to your work. If even you are not criticizing the despotic regime.
Right.
So this is a criticism, okay? And also in this area, you will find very active writers. For example, Salha Ghabish, she's a great poet, and she is a head of Businesswoman Club in Sharjah. And also the group of women writers try to establish literary journal, and they are editor for this literary journal. So Marami, it is edited by a group of women writers, Arab writers, but it is established in Gulf state countries.
Yeah, I think it's a very positive proactivity. I mean, the women, I think it's a really good sign the women are taking it into their own hands. We'll create the journal, we'll create our own award system, in a way to legitimize from the inside.
Yeah,
it
and
seems to
also
me.
I
Yes.
think Professor Tom, he would like to share with you Salha Ghabish
Oh, yes,
poetry.
we've translated some of her
This is
poetry.
part
Yeah.
of our project
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, so this one's called A Song in the Deep Blue. A wave fled. She was afraid to drown in the sea and sought refuge in the sleeping sand. Under the fall of flames, he offered her a goblet overflowing with the effervescence of the salt of alienation. At the end of the session, he adorned her with a necklace of thirst, jeweled with meteorites, while the sea lost his jealousy. One day she was astonished by the sea's journey, and she saw in her unconscious a blue dream. She left her salt in the goblet. She sang to the beach the happiness of her returning to the sea. How beautiful it is to drown in his blue. So a lot of interesting things going on there. A lot of indirect commentary. I mean, what kind of guy gives you a goblet full of salt, right? Right? So there's a lot of indirect comment. It's also a very beautiful poem, mystical, and of course the whole water imagery is kind of a deep image, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, projection image maybe.
Exactly.
Right?
And this poem actually from this collection poems is Waiting for a Sun. This is for Salha Ghabish. And if we go to Kuwait, there is a different approach. So Kuwait has a very, very bold writers who they express their feeling freely. They stood against religious system, political system, patriarchal system. For example, Layla al-Uthman, she is the pioneer of novel and short story in Arab Gulf countries. This is one of her work. She is so bold, and she is so talented too. Layla al-Uthman, she was sued by Islamists to the court. They accuse her. She incitement to pornography, and she is also insulting the divine spirit, and also she is atheist. And Layla al-Uthman, she has a trial, and she was suspended 2 months sentence in the jail, and the fine 500 dinar Kuwaiti is more than dollars, okay? And Layla al-Uthman, she documented this trial, her battle with the Muslim Brotherhoods in her novel, Al-Muhakama. And the same thing happened with Dr. Alia Shuaib. She is a university professor and poet. And there is like, she was sued to the court by Islamists, and she was acquitted. So it means there's like a court, there's political system, and there is like a free speech, or they are able to express their feeling. or they're writing to. And the same thing with Dr. Suad Al-Sabah. Maybe Professor Tom, he's going to share with us our translation.
Right.
So Suad Al-Sabah, she is from royal family. And she stood against religious system, patriarchal system, in her poetry. And Suad Al-Sabah, she's so active in her society. So she published Dar Suad Al-Sabah publishing house to encourage a new generation to write boldly. In Kuwait, they have like a specific system. So women writers establish prices for the youth to write boldly. For example, Layla Al-Uthman Prize. We know Layla Al-Uthman now, right? Layla Al-Uthman Prize for story and novel. So she is going to be in the committee. Say, oh, this is good, this is not. So you have an idea about her way in writing, right? And also we have another talented novelist and short story writers, Muna Shafi'i. So she established, this is the first time, established a prize for displaced Arab people, displaced Arab writers inside their countries. So we know now in Iraq, we have like people who they displace from the north to the south, and the same thing everywhere. But she focused on this kind of writers. They said they need more help financially. And we have also Suad Al-Sabah Prize for intellectual creativity, short story, novel, poetry, criticism, and cinema. Suad Al-Sabah, she focused on youth who are under 35 years old. And maybe?
Yeah, let's read a poem.
Please.
So we've translated one of her poems, which we like quite a lot. It's called Veto on the Women. They have been saying, writing is a great sin, so do not write. Praying in front of letters is haram, prohibited, right? So, not bad, right? A little, right?
Yeah.
So, do not approach them. The ink of poems is poison, so do not drink it. Here I am. I have been drinking a lot, and I haven't been poisoned by the ink pot on my desk. And here I am. I have been writing a lot. I have set a big fire on each star, and God wasn't wrathful toward me any day, and the prophet wasn't displeased with me. They have been saying, speech is the privilege of men, so don't open your mouth. The ghazal is men's art, so do not love. And the writing is a deep sea, so do not drown. And here I am. I have been loving a lot. And here I am. I have been swimming a lot. And I have been resisting all the seas and have not sunk. So beautiful work.
Thank you,
Yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
thank you. She's so bold writer. And she is talking to they, it means patriarchal system and
Absolutely.
religious people
Absolutely,
too.
yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Tom. So we have now the other spot, Saudi. So Saudi has like very bold writers who stood against the religious system, patriarchal system, sometimes directly, sometimes using symbols. We would like to highlight Zainab Hafni. Maybe Professor Tom he is going to share with us excerpt from her latest novel, The Pillow for Your Love. Okay, so this is, it means Wisada لحبك. So Zainab Hafni, she is stood against the religious system. She focused on homosexuality among Arab women in Arab society. And also she stood against the double standard with women in Arab society. In her novel that Professor Tom is going to read part of it, she tried to highlight the Shiite and Sunnah conflict in Saudi society. Please, Professor.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to read an excerpt from that. Yes. Here we go. Yes. So this is the novel has two protagonists. It's a love story between a Sunni woman and a Shiite man. So as you might imagine, political and cultural dynamite right there, right? So some good conflict right there, right? And they each have their own stories and own struggles. So I'm going to talk about the Fatima, the Sunni female protagonist. And this is a little bit about women's sexual liberation, I would say this is part of. What's wrong with a woman taking a younger lover, for example? So here's what this excerpt says.
Get married.
Okay, yeah, right, exactly. So here we go. I met her by chance in one of my family visits. I did not recognize her. She seemed more youthful, her face brimming with freshness. She leaned toward me confidentially, saying, "Here is advice from an experienced woman. Don't pay attention to the words of the people. Form a bond with a man younger than you to regain your youth. Why is it the right of men to marry virgin women decades younger than they, under the pretext that they follow the example of the Prophet Muhammad and the notorious story of his marriage to Mrs. Aisha?" So already getting some religion involved in here too, right? Why do they say sarcastically in our communities that a middle-aged woman who gets married to a younger man is trying to rejuvenate herself and desperately wants to live both in her time and his other time? Is it not our right as women also to follow the example of Mrs. Khadija? That's the Prophet Muhammad's first wife, right? Did she not marry the Prophet, who was 15 years younger at the time? Don't say, but she is the mother of Muslim women and believers. She laughed out loud, then followed with a certain wink. At that time, his prophecy had not emerged yet. She desired him as a man. Isn't that true? So she is breaking several taboos here. Would you say, Wijdan? Yeah.
It is
Very
kind of-
daring.
It is dialogue and monologue at the same time
Right.
for this lady Fatima, who is in love with Jafar. He is a Shiite main character in this novel. Also, we would like to highlight another short story writer, Hiyam al-Miflah. Actually, she won a prize, a Woman in Creativity in Short Story, and she wrote, or she highlighted in her short story, the misogynist society. It means how they deal with women in this society, and in simple way. So if you would like to read, so this is Al-Kitaba, and this is the prize. It's the same one that's here. The same one that's here. The same prize. So she got prize in creativity and writing in short story. And interesting thing, we got in the same years, so all of them. Okay. And also, she is so bold, this lady. And I would like to highlight this activist. I think you are familiar with her, Manal al-Sharif. She was sentenced 9 days in jail because she was driving in Saudi street. But lately, the Saudi women are able to drive their own car in Saudi. So because this is the topic, gain and challenge, so gain and challenge. And we would like to highlight Yemen. So Yemen, it has like a special situation. Even they have like very under poverty, under employment, but they have open wide audience. They accepted the bold writers. We would like to highlight, first of all, Huda al-Attas. She is from Aden, and she is short story writer, and she's the pioneer of short story writing in Arab countries. She has a specific style of writing. She merged and combined many genres in one short story. And also she won many awarded, and she stood against the religious system, patriarchal system, political system. So it's easy to write about, criticize the political system. And maybe we are going to share.
Huda. Yeah, Wijdan and I have written a little bit about Huda's work and translated some of her stories. many of the stories, as Wijdan mentioned, are quite not only content-wise are they daring and pushing boundaries, but also the form of them. Some of them are only a couple of lines long, so they look a little bit like prose poems or almost like a long haiku. So it's a she's a very daring writer, very innovative. So I mean, I can read some of these stories in their entirety. They're about 50 words long, so they're almost like a prose poem. So these are some of the ones we translated during a critical study we were doing on her work. This one is called Dewfall. Dewfall spoon was dancing in the center of the coffee cup. As the sugar melted, the spoon lying in state, neglected. Literary critic, what is she talking about?
She condensed the short story aspects in these words. Little, it means the very condensed words. But she's talking about woman role in Arab society. So this is spoon is woman.
Is the spoon's the woman, right?
Yeah, the woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Let's try one more. Want to?
Would you like?
Critic on the spot. I'm saying. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
How about one about female masturbation?
Oh, okay. Okay.
Since we're being daring, right?
Okay.
Stream, right? Yeah, you know. 3 lines long. It's like a haiku. Flowing nights. She closed her eyes. She married all men in the world. Her eyelids were thunderstruck when the cold bed opened its eyes. That's it. That's the whole story.
And just imagine, she published this in Yemen.
Yeah, very
and
daring.
They accepted that, and they respect her role as a short story writer. Yeah, she's remarkable. And you find this in our book, actually, Veil and Lipstick. Okay, so we have another bold writer, Nabila Zubair, and I would like to say they did not wear hijab. Even the Yemeni society, they wear burqa and they wear hijab. So she's novelist and she's a poet, and her novel, Is My Body, was awarded a Najib Mahfouz Award in Cairo. But in Cairo, they opened controversial debate about what does she mean? It's my body. So it is just, but it is accepted, this novel in Yemen, but not in Cairo, which is like, should be freely, widely open. Okay, we have, and actually this is her work, and زوج حذاء لعائشة, it means 2 pairs shoes for Aisha, and Aisha has a historical background. Okay. And the other writer, Arwa Abd Uthman, short story writer, folklore activist, and journalist. And also, she is the first cultural minister in Yemen, female. And she encouraged dancing and singing, which is prohibited. So this is when she was a cultural minister. And she's also stood against the patriarchal system, religious system. Not a whole thing, but the dogmatic aspect, how they treated women due to this. It means patriarchal system, which is mixed between culture and religion. And also she established the first house of folklore in Yemen, and won also many awarded due to her short story writing. And we have Huda Abelan, and also she got this one, her book. Yeah, her book. Okay, yeah, thank you. So she got also prize. She was awarded due to her writing. She is also stood against religious system, political. She was the first female appointed as a Secretary General of Women Yemeni Union for Writers. This is the first female. And also she is the first deputy of cultural minister in Yemen too. So they got position too. And this is gain. And it's less challenging in Yemen. So this is like interesting. Okay. And we have Nadia Kaukabani. She's a professor, engineer, and she is also a bold writer. And she wrote about arranged marriage, how this arranged marriage especially in her novel حب ليس إلا, love, just only love. Okay, and she described boldly the sexual relationship between two professors, two main characters, and how this relationship became like daily rape. And also she awarded سعاد الصباح prize. So we know this prize now, right? And we have the final lady from Yemen, Tawakkul Karman. So she led the Arab Spring in Yemen, and she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize due to her role in Yemen. And we have Aziza Abdullah, novelist and short story writer, and also she discussed in her novel Urs al-Walid, the wedding of my father, the polygamy. And now we have Levant, yeah, Levant.
Too, yes.
Yeah, so Levant, it means Palestine, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. And there are like many Arab writers. To shrink the time, so we will focus on. So in Levant, there is in Syria, for example, in Syria, so there is like 3 types of writers. First of all, the writers who they glorify the leadership, dictatorship. The second, the writer who they wrote in symbol to criticize the political system, religious system, to be in the safe side. And the third one would be in exile, who they are writing like boldly against the political system, against the religious system, against the patriarchal system. For example, Samaria's book. She wrote about homosexuality in Syria. She criticized the political system, and she's in exile. Okay. We have Lebanon. Lebanon, they have like free space for freedom of speech. So we'd like to highlight Jumana Haddad. Jumana Haddad, she's very bold, talented writer, journalist, poet, short story writer, and she is very, she's activist too. And she described, or she stood against the patriarchal system. I killed Shahrazad. Tried to get rid of Shahrazad. And also she has Superman Arab, and the latest novel would be the daughter of female teachers. She documented the Armenian genocide. Okay, and Jumana Haddad also has a poem. Professor
this is
would like
not
to
one
share.
we've translated, but it's one translated by American poet Marilyn Hacker. And if you follow American literary circles, she's been an ardent feminist poet for a long time herself. So I'll read part of this. It's a poem called Cadaver, and it kind of goes back to that idea, Wijdan, that you were talking about before, about the female body, and about how the body is objectified in a lot of patriarchal cultures. And then given that, how does the female writer deal with this idea that my body is in some ways outside myself? So it seems to me, we were talking about this poem last night, and it seems as if we have a living poet, a speaker in the poem, who is talking about her objectified body as if it were a cadaver. So let's just try a little bit of this. So this is again translated from the French, another exiled writer, right? Of course, Jumana knows 5 languages, I think, right? Yeah. So this is translated from the French. So here it goes, cadaver. I gaze at my corpse where it lies, and I find myself beautiful, beautiful as a wounded legend, beautiful as only someone else can be. There's that weird objectification again, right? I gaze at my corpse, and my corpse is a wire. I am its acrobat, its hostage. It vibrates and threatens to throw me off. I cling to it. I curse it. Then suddenly it becomes a ladder, a wrinkle, a plunge through which I don't stop calling out my farewells to all the mountains leaving without me. There will be dancing at my funeral, that's for sure. There will be a word for every mouth, a fresh hatred for every split skull. There will be dancing at my funeral, and the grass will be heavy beneath the steps. Pitiless, the hill they'll have to climb or descend like a mother's belly when she has given all she had to give. I'll read one more stanza. It's a long poem, I won't read the whole thing. That wire I walk on without moving is my corpse. Useless to put it in a wooden box. Spread a cloth over it. Invite birds to perch there. Sing it no psalms. By no means plant flowers around it. Instead, get down on your knees and ask pardon of the leaves which shaded you, the clothing which covered you, the sky which endured your human filth. So very intense, weird objectification of the body and how a woman might feel about that given the
body.
society, her own body,
Her
right?
body.
Like a dead body. I'm a woman and I'm also a cadaver.
She's not the
right.
owner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not even the owner. Yeah, the body is dead in essence.
And
Yes.
she's also focused on woman body or human being body. So she established a Jesed, a literary journal, which was banned from the Lebanese market due to her daring topics. And also she is now a candidate for a parliament seat in Lebanon. So they accepted her opinion, they accepted her, even she declared that she's atheist. So, and we, with the last place in our tour would be Iraq. So, so there are like Iraqi women writers. They have an important role in literary and cultural scene in Iraqi modern history. For example, so Nazik al-Malaika pioneered of free verses revolution in poetry, and through her poem, maybe we have time to read a piece of it, Cholera.
Sure.
And she was associated with Sayyab, who has like a poem, Was It Love?
Was it love?
To establish this revolution. Her book, the issue of the contemporary poetry, is considered as a pillar of this revolution. And also, this book is the constitution or theoretical book to show the poet how to write the free verses poem. And this, she was followed by the whole Arab countries' poets. And her presence being changed under Saddam Hussein era. Her appearance was reduced. She stopped appearing. She stopped publishing until her death in exile in Cairo, 2007. Not just Nazik al-Malaika was affected, but the whole literary scene in Iraq. So the writers in Iraq, we are focusing on women writers. So they divided into three types of writers. Glorify Saddam Hussein, his leadership, his victories, his wars, praising. And the other one, they use for example, Sajid al-Musawi. She polished his wars, his leadership. And she gained a lot, sure. And we have like writers, a group of writers, talented writers, who they use symbols to discuss the political system, to describe the women lost feeling, how Iraq is going through these wars. For example, Lutfiyat Delemi, she's a novelist, translator, talented too. For example, Maysalun Hadi, she's also a novelist, talented. They describe the first Gulf War and second Gulf War. And we have Irada Juburi, short story writer, professor in Iraq University. She described women feeling sorrow and in her short story. And also we have Hadi Yassin. She used the symbols to describe her feeling, to release herself from the bad condition. And also, these women writers gain many words around Arab countries. For example, Reem Qais Kubba, she gained also Sheikha Jawahir Al-Qasimi Prize for her poetry. In Iraq, after Saddam fell down, the voice of young, bold women raised again. They are appearing in Iraqi media, adopted Western dress, wearing makeup, express themselves, talking about their right to live as they want, and they were attacked by, I could say, electronical army through the social media. They became social media stars. They became Iraqi media stars, but they were attacked. There's no protection. They demand for women's rights. They stood against the political system, corruption, religious. They are so bold, but they were and they are facing a series of assassination. So this assassination divided into two parts: psychological assassination and physical assassination. And these assassination, we would like to start. So political assassination, psychological and physical, and we have scientific assassination. This is for women, and we have social and religious. And by the way, there is like short video clips. We are going to show you some specific evidence, some specific assassination. So if you have like a very weak heart, don't watch it. Okay, so let us start with Intizar al-Shimmari. She is Iraqi professor. She is the winner of the best professor, first professor in Iraqi universities from 2015 to 2017. She is the chair. She is a researcher. She is PhD supervisor. She is a public figure. She is. And she just suddenly said, I am a candidate to be a parliament lady in Iraq. And this lady, she appeared in the TV and declared that she is going to turn on the table on the corruption in our government. And she was psychologically assassinated by broadcast a pornography video. And this video, I am here in America and I got copy, just text me. And this video is just so popular, views, and the whole Arab media talk about this video. No one condemned this video, just describe it. Oh, there is Iraqi professors, and this is part of the conflict between parties in Iraq. Okay? And she appeared in Iraqi television and in social media, and she said, this is valid. This is not me. They would like to destroy me politically, socially, academically, and the wonderful thing, the party withdraw her candidacy. And there is no formal government investigation about that. The other psychological assassination, lawyer, activist, and she wear makeup, Western dress, express herself as women should be. And also she was a candidate, parliament candidacy, and the same thing. And she said, I will demand to let women have their own rights. We deserve better life. And she was assassinated psychologically. Pornographic video appeared through the social media. She appeared. She said, I am not this lady. This is the worst war ever. This is dirty war.
Right.
I am not this lady.
Right.
and they want to destroy me, destroy my program. Just she lost her chance to be a parliament.
Right.
But, okay. So the other physical assassination, Dr. Suad Al-Ali. She is an activist. She is the president or the chairman of the Wijdan Al-Alamiyya for human rights. Okay? And she was protesting with the young people against the corruption in the government. She was assassinated physically during a daytime, and this video actually was wide broadcast, show how the killer kill her and flee. Who published this video? Who knows she's going to be killed at this moment? This is the question. So we are going to watch some of it. Are you ready? Okay. I'm not sure, Anton, maybe we need your help. I will try. Oh, here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Yeah, it's going. So this is her car. Okay. So this is her car. She is walking with her driver. And this is Suad. And there is someone who's going to appear. Here you go. Shoot her and shoot her driver. That's it. That's it. That's it. And there is no government investigation hold, or maybe they hold investigation, but there is no result. Yeah. No result. And she's here when she was like advocate people to rebel against the corruption in the government. And we have this scientific assassination. So she is plastic surgery, superstar in social media, and she was poisoned in a very mysterious condition in her house. And they said they start autopsy. There's no result. No result. Okay? And she stood actually boldly against the religious system. She said she's stood with the plastic surgery, which is against the religious establishment. And after this lady, we have another victim, psychological assassination. Her name is Dr. Rasha Al-Hassan, and she's Iraqi cosmetic expert, owner also for the beauty center for plastic surgery, and one of the stars of social media. Also, she was poisoned, but due to the specific agenda. So the agenda said each Thursday we are going to get one whore. And this rumor became like among Iraqi people, Iraqi street. And after that, we have a queen of beauty, star of social media, and she was also physically assassinated. This lady was poisoned, but this lady shoot dead, okay? And she also opened the window to young people to express themselves. And here we go. So now, okay. So this is the exactly, okay. 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 Close. We need your help. Yeah. No, just I cannot. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So she was driving her own car, This is the place. This is Tara Faris, and she expressed her feeling against the religious system. And now this is her car, and this is the man who killed her. And there is like a motorcycle waiting for him, and there is no official also investigation result appear too. And so after this event, so the Iraqi stars female flee from Iraq. So the Miss Iraq, Naima Al-Qasim, she fled to Jordan because there is rumors every Thursday that would be a new victim. And they told her, you will be the new victim. And here, I think here.
Maybe.
Okay. So she opened, I don't know. Okay. Yeah, here you go. Thank you. Okay. So here she's opened the broadcast with her audience, and now she say, what is our sin? We would like just to live in peace. We are not a prostitute. So they describe them, all of them, as a prostitute. And they have to sanitize the Iraqi society from them. And some of them, they said ISIS would be in charge. But there is no government investigation result yet. And she is in Jordan. And we have the Shahid Shimari also. She is superstar poet, and she fled to Lebanon. And she appeared in social media. No, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. But she is in Lebanon. Okay. So the latest thing would be Nadia Murad. She was raped, tortured, brutally by ISIS fighters. And she lost her whole family in one day. And this is the religious assassination, because she's Yazidi, and Nadia Murad and her followers, they were tortured, sex slaves. And she tried to have help from Arab leaders. They condemned, but there is no, and this condemn would be like followed by silence. And she speak out internationally, and she get the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is in our pocket, and our tour is done. So the conclusion,
Yes. So what do we make of all this? Obviously a very difficult situation, right? We have a lot of brave and talented women trying to change the system in different ways, right? And we can say there are really three ways to do that, right? Or three ways to approach a system wherein you are oppressed. One is to acquiesce, and if you want to write, you write in praise of
the leadership,
right? Essentially, right? If you want to be a writer and create art. The second option, which I think most of the writers take, is to write well, do your art, and to obliquely or subtly criticize and make comments, symbolically, metaphorically, in whatever subtle way one can. And I think that's probably the majority of writers that that the intelligentsia would be interested in. I would say that first category we mentioned, Wijdan, would probably not be really of interest to the liberal secular
but they gain
some prestige from the power system, right?
Yeah, but they are minority.
Right, a minority of writers.
And the third?
And the third is really the risk takers, right? The ones who actually are explicit in their condemnation and outrage at the oppression, right? Whether it's patriarchy or religion or politics, or in some cases race, in the case of some writers from Sudan, black Arabs, right? So I think these writers are trying in different ways to express themselves under really an atmosphere of extreme pressure. It seems to me, a lot of pressure. Of course, we know great art can come out of that, but that's also a lot of great human suffering. And I mean, our hope is that these writers and the people who are willing to translate them and get their word out, can help to make the world better, and certainly more specifically their lives better, and thus ours, I would say. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you for your
thank you
for your patience. Thank you.
Yeah. Questions?
Okay.
So
I think the microphone.
That's fine.
Do you
Yeah.
think?
Right,
do you
right here. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. So, thank you for the great presentations that you've made. I was just curious if these assassinations were coordinated, and if they were coordinated by government, or who coordinated the assassinations, because there's the psychological and then there's the physical assassination. So apparently somebody had to determine which way to go, and who make that decisions.
Do we know?
This is actually this is. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, I don't know if we know the answer to that. I mean, it's a tantalizing question, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it is a very complicated question due to the Iraqi complicated situation. So there is no rule for the laws in Iraq. So everyone can do everything, and they named the people who they encourage others to do so, the electronical army. So they tried to open the fire inside the Iraqi street, and they describe them prostitutes. They describe them like very bad words. And who's the doer for that? Each one who has like any a criminal action, he could do it, because the window is open.
Right.
There is no punishment. There is no government investigation result appears. And this is like help others to do whatever they want. And each cities in Iraq during this assassination, they have like a specific bright names. They say, oh, next Thursday will be her. This next, so if you,
So it's terror. It's a terror attack of
and
sorts.
this is like under the fear, under the
Right,
fear.
right.
Put women under the fear,
Right,
and the
right.
bright women under the
Yeah,
fear.
right. And I would argue that the technology allows that. I mean, to broadcast assassinations, for example, as we saw little clips of, that's a good way to spread fear. very
And
quickly.
also you can recognize the killer, but there is no punishment.
We have a question back here. I'll bring the mic back to you. Here we go. Sure, of course.
Well, thank you so much, and very inspiring and sobering. I guess I have two questions. The first was, given the current level you choose on the assassination issue, you choose Iraq, and given the current and the recent level of violence, general violence across the board and across genders, how do you determine whether did you make a statement whether it's particular violence, particularly a gender-based violence, or it is both men and women? And if it's gender-based, how do you disaggregate? How do you identify? That's will be number one. Number two, to assess the U.S. policy towards supporting these women. And I know these are sensitive areas because of the cultural aspect and cultural relativism, even amongst the liberal crowd. And if you can perhaps give us also examples of what has worked from the U.S. Government side in terms of supporting those voices, what has not worked, and similarly for the civil society, what quote unquote we can do to support their work and struggles.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, would you like to answer?
Well, I would say, first of all, with the first question about was it about the
gender,
the gender? Are these
assassination.
assassinations gender based? And Wijdan, I think you're
I
pretty sure
have-
because
I
of
have
the
answered.
Thursday
Yeah.
Thursday thing. You know, the idea that every Thursday we will kill a
get rid of-
whore to cleanse the community. That seems pretty clear, but I mean, one never knows with crimes, copycat, that kind of thing. We can't be absolutely sure, but that seems to be a fairly clear agenda.
Yeah, I have another addition. So this is because our topic about Arab women writers. If I would like to focus on the series of assassination, I can add the latest assassination for Iraqi novelist. He just attacked the Khomeini system, and there is fatwa to kill him in front of his house. He was riding his bicycle, and there is like 13 bullets. He was shot by 13 bullets because he said Khomeini was in Iraq 13 years. So look how the criminal peoples are secure. So 13 bullets, it means if it's just like regular criminal, it means one bullet and run away. But 13. It's 13, it means this is the doer for this assassination. It means the criminal people are secure. So we name in Iraqi phrase, we say this is watermelon state. It means everyone can do everything. So this is not gender. And myself, he's the new Najib Mahfouz of Iraq. Because he wrote about Jewish in Iraq, he wrote about tolerated in Iraq, how the minority can live in peace in Iraq. And he's a novelist. His sin, he was a novelist. And this is not gender. This is like everywhere. And the other question?
The other one was, what can we do? Yeah. Right. Yeah. What about in the United States? I mean, certainly Jumana Haddad's pretty well known. I think in this country, a lot of these writers aren't. I mean, when Wijdan and I started writing about some of the women writers in the region, we wanted to focus on ones who had not been translated into English. And I was introduced to several I'd never heard of, obviously. And I'm a lit guy, and it was very interesting. So there's a lot out there, and of course the voices are suppressed, right? Given the cultural and political situation of the region. But I think one of the things we can do is somehow translate the works of these writers, and slowly the word will get out. But it's very difficult to directly help, isn't it? I mean, it's an internal issue to a certain extent. It's a national issue, and it's tied up with religion and culture. And I think from the American perspective, probably a lot of things that I, as an American person, would not even understand. A very complex region, obviously, right? And then it's a little bit like some of the other talks we've talked about. I mean, it's a little bit like China, doing their project too. They're encountering things that probably they don't totally understand. We slowly try to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also the support would be from inside. So the problem of that, it means outside support will not understand the culture, will not understand the religion, patriarchal system, and corruption. So the corruption is the most important thing. Support them to clean the government.
Right. But I think something the women are doing that I think is a really good idea is they're developing their own prizes. Now, if the patriarchy doesn't care about their work, they care about their work. So let's let some of the famous women start these prizes and start honoring some of the women who are trying to speak out. And I think that's the way to grow it from inside. And of course that's very threatening to the status quo, right? And that's why we have this pushback, wouldn't you say? This kind of backlash. After the fall of Saddam Hussein, we had this flowering of very, very active, very militant writing, and then there's been a backlash with these assassinations and other things. And that's just that's the natural ebb and flow of resistance, right? So I think these writers are trying, and it's not easy, right? I don't know if our message is one absolutely of hope, but we know that art is hope, and we know that art beats death every time, right? Ultimately, right? Yes. Oh, maybe so. Let me bring it over to you. If it's on. Yeah.
Thanks.
There we go.
Have you all seen a literary movement towards reinterpreting the Quran instead of simply rejecting it?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not familiar with it myself. Wijdan, anybody?
So what is the question again?
Reinterpreting the Quran.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the dilemma that the Arab people are finding themselves inside it, fighting for this text. Interpreting Quran, it means change or reform the religious establishment, and it needs long term.
Has there been like a literary movement towards that? That anyone